Playboy magazine once wrote that Colfax was the longest, wickedest street in America. On this avenue, said to be the longest continuous street in the U.S., one can experience a wide-ranging gamut of the American condition, from prosperous shopping malls to eccentric independent shops, from neighborhood revitalization efforts to burned-out abandoned storefronts, from upscale high-rise lofts to old-fashioned high plains country living, and from unbridled prosperity to economic despair. So just how long is Colfax Avenue? Well, that depends on who you ask. Some contend that its new configuration extends from the points where Colfax crosses I-70 at the west end in Golden and eastern Aurora, a span of 26.4 miles. But in Golden, as well as the towns of Bennett and Strasburg in the eastern Colorado plains, residences and businesses still claim Colfax addresses. That would put Colfax at about 50 miles, but like everything else about Colfax, this is highly subjective. Some consider Colfax to be a living, thriving celebration of history and individualism. Others considered it a sleazy, drug-addled testament to the inevitable decline of Western civilization. The reality is probably somewhere in between. Colfax wanders out of the foothills into the quaint former mining town of Golden. Several small businesses line the road, along with a few major auto dealerships. Golden is a relatively affluent community, but you wouldn't know it by this nondescript stretch. Its character is very small town. The laid-back ambience gets a jolt when coming upon the Colorado Mills and Denver West malls. With acres of high-end retail shopping and restaurants, the complex is a mecca for shoppers from all over the Denver metro area. Clean and modern, it is a quintessential place to gather for the well-heeled halves of Denver society. Next to the malls, at the corner of Indiana where the old Golden Road begins its descent into downtown Golden, a large auto dealership and a hotel stand vacant, unused and deserted. Victims of a struggling economy, they are proof of the fine line that the well-heeled balance between success and failure. They stand empty as precursors of what's to come. Continuing west, at the top of a small hill, is the lynch gate to the hill section of the Golden Hill Cemetery. Archived in the National Register of Historic Places, the largely unkempt site was the final destination place for indigent tuberculosis patients. They were laid to rest here by members of the Jewish Consumptive Relief Society, founded by Jewish immigrant Dr. Charles Spivak in 1904. Located at Colfax and Pierce, where Casa Benito stands today, they were dedicated to treating the thousands who came to Colorado in search of a cure for the White Plague, and they would treat anyone regardless of their financial status. This hill was reserved for those with no money so that they may have a proper burial. The main cemetery across White Acres Road is reserved for paying customers only. In 2004, Walmart Incorporated developed 37 acres of land at the northeast corner of Wadsworth Boulevard in Colfax and built a 220,000 square foot super Walmart, as well as 37,000 square feet of inline shops. Soon to follow were a brand new strip mall on the adjacent corner and a Home Depot on the south side of Colfax. The new Creekside Center brought an influx of revenue to the corner, but the cost to other businesses along Colfax was devastating. In quick succession, a Target store, a Circuit City, and an Albertsons Market closed their doors. From Sim Street to Federal Boulevard, small and large businesses alike ran for the safety of Chapter 11. All that remains is an endless succession of liquor stores, bars, tattoo parlors, payday loans, shady auto dealerships, and cheap one-night stand motels. The Rose Lady operates an entire block, catering to the wants and needs of Lakewood and West Denver have-nots, and West Colfax has essentially become a small business graveyard. But unlike the Hill and Golden Hill Cemetery, there are no benevolent organizations willing to give them a decent burial. The Rose Lady will, however, perform cremations. Traveling east, Colfax continues as a viaduct, crossing past Invesco Field, home of the Denver Broncos, past the light rail station for the Auraria College campus complex, and passing over the Platte River. It continues its route into downtown Denver and becomes East Colfax. National and state government buildings appear in rapid succession. The Colorado Convention Center and the 5,000-seat Wells Fargo Theater. The U.S. Mint producing over $40 million in coins a year. The Denver County Courthouse. Civic Center Park, a longtime destination for drug dealers and the homeless. And the Colorado State Capitol Building. The differences between West and East Colfax are never more accentuated than by the Capitol Hill section. Whereas West Colfax is mostly destitute and depressed, this East Colfax stretch from Grant Street to Colorado Boulevard is like a huge block party. The street is alive as tourists and crackheads, partiers and prostitutes, shoppers and the displaced all come together in an anarchic mixture of variety and peril. The eclectic blend of small thriving businesses is truly astounding, from Annie's Hubcap Alley to the A-Ben Gallery of Fine Arts. Live entertainment is alive and well as the Fillmore, Ogden, and Bluebird theaters, as well as the Lion's Lair and Satire lounges, all feature local and national musical acts with an exotic blend of musical styles that changes from day to day and defies categorization. Block after block highlights one bar, lounge, or nightclub after another, and bar hopping on Colfax can be an all-night adventure. From the Cheeky Monkey Belgian Beer Cafe to Sancho's Broken Arrow, any level of hospitality or danger can be found. And while there are the requisite fast food chains, the vast array of diverse independent restaurants can have you trying new dishes for weeks. Almost any type of cuisine can be had, with varying degrees of gastronomical success. Nearly all of these enterprises are housed in the original buildings that were built on Colfax in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. With architecture both beautiful and nostalgic, they recall a time long ago when a Colfax address was prestigious, when it was the main gateway from the east to the Rocky Mountains, before Interstate 70 diverted travelers away. As Colfax continues through Aurora, one can't help but notice a demographic shift to the businesses as they reflect the preferences of the Hispanic and African American populace that dominate the area. It's said that this is the most dangerous stretch of Colfax, but in reality the crime rate here is the same as Capitol Hill or West Colfax. What is notable is the number of successful small businesses. There are no grand old buildings like in Capitol Hill, but the rows of cheap storefronts housing these ethnic-oriented ventures appear to be thriving. A few landmarks remain, like the Fox Theater and a 50s-era McDonald's, but for the most part it's simple and functional. The biggest reason for the area's success can be traced to the new University of Colorado Hospital and the Children's Hospital at the eastern end of Colfax and Interstate 225. Known as the Anschutz Medical Center and built on the site of the old Fitzsimmons Army Medical Center, it is responsible for introducing 32,000 new jobs to Aurora. One thing East and West Colfax have in common is the overabundance of cheap motels lining its curbs. Remnants of the 40s and 50s, when Colfax was the primary thoroughfare through Denver, they were undoubtedly a welcome sight to weary travelers. But the advent of Interstate 70 left them with no tourist trade and no purpose but to offer refuge to the prostitutes, drug users, and homeless that populate this enigmatic street. It could be argued that they are the key reason for Colfax's blemished reputation, that prostitution and drug abuse proliferate because they enable them, that Colfax will never be more than a denizen of crime because of them. But that would be an oversimplification of the situation, because nobody really lives on Colfax, and everyone is just passing through. Colfax merges into I-70 as it enters the plains, but the original road still exists out in the open space, tracing a beeline to the towns of Bennett and Strasburg. Driving through the endless miles of prairie harkens back to a time forgotten, when Colfax was a dirt road stretching through tiny provinces all the way to the Rocky Mountains. And while Aurora, Denver, and Lakewood have undergone radical transformations over the decades, Bennett and Strasburg have remained the old-fashioned farming communities they have always been, with the only commonality being a Colfax address. It is out here in the farmers' fields that it all seems to make the most sense. So is Colfax the meanest street in America? I guess it depends which rock you look under.